Once you've mastered spinning wool, one of the things you might want to do is to move on to some more exotic fibres. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about one of those fibres, and that's alpaca. If you're new here, my name is Becca and I'm a hand spinner, knitter and newbie weaver, and you're very welcome to my slightly echoey conservatory here in West Wales. Okay, so alpaca. What are alpacas? They are a member of the camelid family, so they're very closely related to llamas. They come from South America. They are a pack animal. They are used as food. They're a meat animal and obviously a fibre animal. And they're very important to the indigenous people who live in the high Andes. So for a hand spinner, we really need to know about the different fibres. And we have a Wakaya breed and a Surrey breed. 90 to 95% of all the alpacas in the world are Wakaya, and they have quite fluffy, crimpy sort of fleeces and fibre. And the Surrey, which is the much rarer one, they have very silky, long, a bit like a long wool, sort of almost like dreadlocks, and very different type of fibres. You will also see baby alpaca advertised, and that's the equivalent to a shearling when we're talking about sheep. So it is the first year's clip. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it comes from a baby animal, but it'll be the first time that the fleece has been clipped off the animal, and so that is called baby alpaca. So when we talk about fibres, we often talk about the micron count. How thick is each individual fibre? And alpaca is very fine. It ranges sort of between about sort of 19 and 28 on the micron scale. That's equivalent to a very fine wool like a merino. However, unlike a merino, it's got very long staple lengths, and it's anything from 10 centimetres up to about 20 centimetres. And the Surreys are the one with the really long fibres. But generally, you're not going to find those. They're quite few and far between. So you're generally going to get something that's between sort of 10 and 15 centimetres. And we do need to know that when we're spinning. We need to take that into consideration. Unlike sheep, alpacas do not have lanolin in their fleeces, which means that if anybody is allergic to sheep's wool, it's generally the lanolin they're allergic to. So if you are allergic to lanolin, you can wear alpaca without having an allergic reaction. So when you want to buy your alpaca fibre, there are several ways you might see it for sale. You might see it as a whole fleece. You might see it as a carded roving or a carded bat. You might see it as combed top. Generally, combed top is going to be from the mill, so it's mill prepared, as your bats and your raw fleece or raw fibres are likely to come from somebody who actually keeps alpacas. So if you're preparing raw fleece, there's something that you do need to bear in mind, and that alpacas have guard hairs, particularly on the kind of the legs and what on a sheep we would call the breech, so the kind of the thicker bits. And so really you only want to spin with the very best quality, and that's going to be down the neck and across the shoulders and going down with what's called the blanket. Once you start to get into the leg area and sort of going down the back of the animal, it's going to start to get a bit coarse, and you are going to have to look out for those guard hairs. Guard hairs can be combed out. If you're using quite a fine comb, that works quite well. If you're limited on time or space, or you just don't have the inclination, then you can buy prepared combed top. I'm in the UK and I can get both South American and British alpaca, and it comes as combed top, and you can buy it by the 100 grams. I get mine from World of Wool. I will link that in the description below. I'm also in the process of writing a blog post about it, so once that blog post is written and up, then I will link it in the description below as well. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the camera around and do a bit of a test spin, and let's see how I get on, because I can honestly say I haven't spun alpaca for about 15 years, so I don't really know how this is going to go. This came from World of Wool, combed top. Let's just have a little look at it. Beautifully soft. And I'm just going to get this one out. Now, before I start spinning something I've not spun before, I just sort of assess the fibres a little bit. So let's just pull the staple length out, just see how long it is. There you go. So that's, well, I mean, quite long, longer than the ruler, and the ruler is 12 centimetres plus a little bit, so at least 15 centimetres I would think. And then according to World of Wool, the micron count is somewhere between 28 and 29 microns. So that's really, really fine. That's kind of merino fine. And in fact, it's finer than the baby alpaca they had for sale. So I'm just going to put a little bit of twist in it and see how much twist we need to hold it together. You're not supposed to need an awful lot of twist. No, you really don't need much twist to hold that together. That's very interesting. So I'm going to draft quite fine, and it's not going to need a lot of twist. Okay, so that is good information. So it feels incredibly slippy, and I've put it on the faster ratio, the smaller ratio, because I was going to draft quite finely. However, because I don't need a lot of twist, I'm just thinking, just going to pop it up to the bigger ratio, and I'm going to draft a little bit thicker, so I'm going to have a little bit more fibre in my draft and just see how that goes. And because it's been combed, I'm going to do short forward draw. Now I have to say the dog is kind of yippity yapping because there is a reenactment going on down on the beach, and although we're not sort of absolutely on the beach, the wind means that quite often we can hear it, and she's very wound up by it. We went down to have a look to see if I could do any filming, and there were horses down there and cannons down there and people with muskets. She was extremely freaked out, hence why we're not down there filming. Okay, so let's just see. How this goes. It feels like the right decision to go with the bigger whirl and not draft quite as fine, because you really don't need an awful lot of twist. It's very slippy. This dog is just... I just had to go and have a little conversation with the dog because she was being a bit yippy. A bit yippity yappy. Okay. I'm going to just turn the tension up a little bit. I mean, you can see I really don't want to put any more twist than that in. And I think if I draft any finer and put any more twist in, it's going to be over twisted. So I'm going to stay on the bigger whirl. I've just tightened the tension up a little bit. And I'm really going to be quite slow with this drafting and treadling. So one of the big differences between spinning alpaca and spinning wool is that wool has got scales on it, and it does very much sort of grab onto the next bit of fibre next to it. Does that make any sense? Kind of makes sense. And alpaca is not like that. It's very, very skatey. It's quite like spinning silk. But whereas silk, you need quite a lot of twist for silk, I think you probably don't want to put too much twist in. So I'm drafting a bit finer now. But I want quite a quick uptake, and I think if I put it on the smaller whirl, I'm going to put too much twist in it. That's my feeling. I was also contemplating spinning from the fold, but it's quite long, the staple length, so I'm not sure that would be particularly successful. If you are preparing from raw fleece, then you've got the option to create a cloud and spin from the cloud and spin long draw. And I think that would be slightly less alarming. This is a little bit alarming because it just slips through your fingers. Oh my goodness, just kind of whoosh, gone. And it definitely would be easy to over twist this. And of course I don't want to do that because it's such a beautiful, soft, fine fibre. I really want to make it quite airy. I'm going to card a bit up and see if I can do a version of long draw, but at the moment just short forward draw. It's working. I'm just going to carry on doing this, and I'm definitely drafting a bit finer than I was at the start of the spin. But yeah, nice colour. It does feel quite nice, and I realise I'm leaning forward because I'm a bit tense, because this is not my normal spin at all. I'm very fond of my down wools, as you will well know if you have watched very many of my videos. Yeah, I've gone a little bit thick and thin there. So really trying to relax without losing. So I tried to treadle too fast then, and just it got away from me. So just slow it all down a bit. And my goodness, this is so soft. It's quite different from spinning merino, because merino is quite short normally, as this staple length is long, like spinning a long wool really. But long wools generally have quite a lot of crimp in them, and of course this does not have a lot of crimp. I should get a spinning control card out and just see what weight I'm spinning. I think this will probably end up at about Aran weight, I would think, looking at it, but it might be a bit more. I don't know how much bloom you're going to get finishing it. I'm thinking not a lot of bloom because it's a worsted spin and it doesn't have really any crimp to speak of, so I think it's going to be, I don't think it's going to kind of puff up in the same way as some wools do when you finish them. Oh, I'm sort of spinning off the fold now. You know what, I think spinning off the fold probably would work quite well. I'm just going to have a little experiment spinning off the fold. Let's just see. Well, we've just had a load of cannon fire, so I'm sort of hoping that that was it for the moment. They're doing it again tomorrow. And at some point I will take you round the sites of the last invasion of Britain. And if you think that Britain was last invaded in 1066, you are in fact wrong. 228 years ago, the Napoleonic Wars were kind of hotting up, and Fishguard was invaded by the French. And it didn't last very long. It didn't stick because we're not all speaking French. And the French were defeated not by the local militia, but the women folk of Fishguard. And the French soldiers thought that the redcoats were coming because they saw a line of what turned out to be Welsh women in their traditional costume, which was a tall black hat and red flannel cloaks and red flannel skirts, and they thought it was the redcoats, so they surrendered. How much artistic license has been added to that story over the years, I will let you decide. But if you come to Fishguard and you go to Fishguard Library, there is a tapestry. Well, it's not a tapestry, it's an embroidery. They call it a tapestry. It's not a tapestry, it's embroidery. It is a depiction of the last invasion of Britain in Fishguard, and the Welsh women in their red cloaks, which at the time would have been dyed with madder. So I'm struggling a little bit to get this to join. I need to concentrate a bit more and stop talking about madder and invasions of Fishguard. Right, come on. I'm just going to put a bit more twist in it. There you go. That's better. That's going to join nicely, I think. So I don't know how much you're going to hear of what I can hear, which is sort of drum beats and musket fire and all sorts of things that's going on. We're about half a mile from the beach, and the wind does carry the sound. We can quite often hear the ferry unloading at night because obviously there's no other sounds going on and the wind sort of carries it up here. But today we have got drum beats and cannon fire and musket fire and marching and horses, and poor little dog was blimmin' terrified when we went down there this morning, and all she saw was the horses. Not very good with horses. She has stayed with my parents who keep horses, and she was pretty terrified then. Cows, terrifying. Sheep, terrifying. She's terrified of everything, apart from rats. Not terrified of those. I tell you, a rat comes near her, they're living very dangerously. Anyway, enough about terrified dogs. Let's get back to this alpaca. Well, I'm sort of getting my rhythm, my spinning rhythm with it now. And I'm going to carry on spinning this, and I will come back to you when I'm plying. Right, now I am plying. I have to say, I really enjoyed that. I did sort of get the hang of it. It took me a little while to kind of really find my rhythm. I've got a bit of nonsense going on there. Right. Well, that took me a little while to find my rhythm, but it spun up really nicely in the end. I mean, it's very slippy. And, you know, you kind of do your research and you're reading and it says, oh, you know, it's slippy. And you go, how slippy can it be? Yeah, really, really slippy. But actually, it was fine. I got used to it quite quickly. And I think if you are used to spinning fine wool, if you're used to spinning a merino, I don't think you would find it that difficult at all. But because I mostly spin the down type of wools, which do sort of very much grip onto each other, or the fibres grip onto each other quite easily, I found it a little more challenging. But I got there, and as I say, I really enjoyed it. I think I need to be putting a little bit more twist in this ply. I think I need to get a better angle. Yep, okay, that's a bit of a steeper angle now. I think I was letting it ply a bit too loosely. As I never tire of saying, I'm not a particularly technical spinner. I do very much do things by eye, and I would never tell you not to measure things, just I don't. And both are fine, you know. There are no spinning police, so, you know, if you like to measure the angle of your ply, then absolutely do it. I do it by eye. And, you know, it's fine. It works out for me. As I've said many times, I'm only spinning for myself. I am not spinning to sell it. I'm not a production spinner. So, therefore, it really, you know, a bit slapdash maybe. But hey ho, I'm doing this for fun. The French appear to have finished invading. So whether they've now gone up to the Royal Oak to surrender, I'm not sure, but I think that was on the programme. So they were invading Goodick Beach and then going up to Fishguard to surrender at the Royal Oak, sort of reenacting what happened. That isn't actually what happened, but, you know, it's kind of a representation of what happened. I think they did surrender at the Royal Oak. They sort of did the official surrender, signing the documents at the Royal Oak. But the rest of it was kind of a little bit scattered along the coastline. As I said, at some point we'll do a kind of little invasion tour. I think that would be quite good fun. But I do tend to avoid the coastal path at the height of the tourist season, which we are absolutely in now. So maybe sometime in September we'll do the sights and sounds. Well, it probably won't be the sounds because I don't want to put cannon fire on things, but we'll do the sights of the last invasion of Britain. And the important part that fibre arts played in it, because of the woolen cloaks of the townswomen dyed red with madder, which was the same colour used by the British Army for their red coats. I don't think it's kind of put like that. I don't think other people see the link between fibre arts and the Napoleonic Wars, but I do, because, you know, that's my obsession, isn't it? So I will come back to you when I have finished this yarn, and I'll knit a bit up as well, so that you can see that. As all the best TV shows say, let's go back to the studio. Well, I really enjoyed spinning that, and it took me a bit of time to get used to it, but in the end it was a really lovely spin. I think if you are used to spinning quite fine wool fibres, I don't think you'll struggle with it at all. I generally spin a down fibre, which is much crimpier, so I found the silkiness a little bit difficult as I first started, but I got the hang of it quite quickly. Now, it is finishing at the moment. It's having a bit of a rest and a bit of a soak, and I will knit up a sample and drop it in at the end of the video. So I really want to spin some more alpaca. I've got another colour to try, so I'm going to try that as well. And I would really like to find some of the Surrey alpaca to try. Alpaca does blend very well with other wools, so I definitely want to have a bit of a go on the blending board and see if I can come up with something exciting. That grey was really heathered looking, so I think that would make a lovely heathered yarn, and I'm going to have a little experiment, and I of course will share that with you. So by the magic of editing, here's how it knitted up. As if by magic, there is our knitted sample. And
it has finished really nicely and knitted up really, really nicely. Not a lot of bloom, as I thought there wouldn't be. However, I am definitely going to spin Alpaca again. Really, really enjoyed it. And I absolutely could not remember what I felt about it when I last span it, which has got to be at least 15 years ago. So I hope you enjoyed that. As ever, leave a comment, ask a question. So until next time, may your needles be swift and your yarns be soft.